Hey there, business owner. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. This is our weekly episode, and I'm so happy you are here. Let's get started. Hey there, entrepreneur. This is your host, Annette Walter, and I am an entrepreneur just like you, growing a national business. And thankfully, through the team and the process that I've set up within my company, I'm able to do business coaching and coach entrepreneurs like you. What I thrive on and what fills my cup is sharing stories and making you feel like you are surrounded and not going at this alone. Today's story is remarkable, and I know you are going to enjoy every ounce of this interview. I'm joined by Harry Pappas. He's a serial entrepreneur and has seriously hustled hard ever since he graduated college. He's in the franchise business. So if you or someone you know has been thinking about investing in a franchise opportunity, or maybe you're running a franchise of your own right now, this is a solid listen. Harry started his franchise career in Krispy Kreme and then moved on to Quiznos. He now is thriving with an empire of Color Time, now Rent-A-Centers, and the story is incredible. You will gain so much wisdom, so much knowledge, and I know that you're going to walk away thinking, wow, that's an amazing story, and you're going to learn something along the way. So make sure you leave a review, leave 5 stars. It means so much to me. Your feedback about the podcast has been absolutely incredible. We have over 1,500 downloads since our short start just in July of 2020. Take a listen and make sure you hit subscribe. I drop episodes every Tuesday with an interview of an entrepreneur and every Friday where I drop a 5-minute business tip. Please share and let me know your thoughts. Send me a message at yourock@iEvolveConsulting.com. I'm here for you, entrepreneur. I want you to feel surrounded by other entrepreneurs like yourself who are doing it. People like Harry who are out there hustling hard. I want you to feel inspired and surrounded and, just keep on doing this. You've got this. I'm so proud of you. Keep evolving, and I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy this episode. Welcome, Harry. How are you?
I'm great, Annette. How are you?
Good. You are here. I'm so happy you are here. Thank you for spending time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I describe you not only as a dear friend and an amazing neighbor, really a lifetime neighbor, because we go way back to our childhood. We've always lived on the same street, right?
Yeah, we've been neighbors in childhood and now adulthood, and kids are running around the neighborhood together. It's pretty interesting.
It's awesome. I love it. But you're also like my go-to guru when it comes to franchises. And that's why I'm so excited about this, because our audience of business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, people that are thinking about starting a business, they're just going to find so much wisdom and knowledge in what you're going to share today because of your history. And you really, you've touched so many different types of franchises throughout your career and throughout your path in life that I'm really happy you're here. So welcome.
Thank you.
So
yes.
Harry is the owner of CTRTO LLC, DBA as Rent-A-Center. And as I said, this isn't his first gig. So catch us up to speed. Give us a backdrop of, how you kind of started, what was your first franchise, and how things really evolved, my favorite word, clearly, from there.
Yeah. Well, it started back just out of college. My father was involved in the Burger King franchise. He grew that with an operating partner, a guy named Gary Edwards, to 5 Burger Kings from one Burger King over on Eastern Avenue in Baltimore. And pretty interesting story where, he grew that business. It later evolved into us being Krispy Kreme franchisees. We brought the the Krispy Kreme brand to Maryland, and got it going from one store over on Bel Air Road to 5 stores in the state. And that's kind of where I entered the franchise world.
Right at Krispy Kreme, right?
At Krispy Kreme, yep.
Okay.
And that was also with his Burger King operating partner, who branched out into the Krispy Kreme franchise. It was Winston-Salem, North Carolina, small franchise that was growing nationally and very quickly. At the end of the day, it was just donuts, but it was pretty interesting business model. And we got in there and gave Dunkin' Donuts a little run for their money. But Gary, his business partner, kind of took me under his wing. He had been in the fast food and franchise world most of his career, working for another entrepreneur in the state, Phil Hoig, with the Burger Kings. So he started me, from the ground up, sent me down to Winston-Salem to go through donut college.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So you graduated college and went to donut college, right?
I sure did.
You should start your story with that.
I know. So, learned how to make the donuts, and he, just out of college, so in my early 20s, and he put me in the production lines making the donuts, and on probably the worst shift possible, the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift.
Wow.
And when a lot of my friends were going out to have fun on weekends, I was going in Friday night at 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Saturday morning to make donuts.
Wow.
So he definitely showed me what hard work was all about. And, on top of, my dad giving me a lot of advice through the years as well. But it was an invaluable experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you have a mentor like that can teach you so much, and you really can touch and see every aspect of the operation, right? That's invaluable, right?
Yep. Yeah. Learned.
Then what happened?
Learned every component of the business. Got into management, helped open some stores. The business evolved into more of a 24/7 business, because we started making donuts out the back door and delivering to convenience stores,
like
and
Royal
so forth.
Farm and
And just when the business was going great, and performing, as it was at that time had become a public company.
Okay.
And Krispy Kreme was going great, and the only thing we were behind on was our development schedule. We were supposed to open, I think, 10 stores in 5 years. We got 4 in 5, so we were a little behind, and they kept refusing different sites, and we noticed that new sites were cannibalizing old sites, eating into sales. So we decided to do a little pivot, and because Krispy Kreme was rather high on themselves, their stock had split 4 times, and so on. We thought about selling the business back to them, and other franchisees were somewhat surprised that we would want to do that at a time when it was one of the hottest brands in the country. But we did, and Krispy Kreme took us up on the offer. They bought all 5 of our locations back, and we moved on.
What year was that, Harry?
I would say that was in 2008, 2000, probably a little sooner. 2000. No, that was in 2000.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
awesome. Were they one of the first drive-through operations that were like breakfast related?
Dunkin' had always been in that business.
Okay.
And as it turns out now, everybody's wanting to be in that drive-through business just because of,
COVID,
what's occurred with being indoors. But yes, they were, early on to the drive-through, getting your hot donuts through the drive-through and so forth. But the sale of that business ended up being, very well timed, and a lot of things in business are timing and occasionally luck. So,
So what was your biggest takeaway at that point? I'd say you were probably in your 20s, right? Early young 20s, mid 20s. What
yep,
were you thinking at that point in your life? Like,
I
and
was.
see all this magic and this negotiating and just all of this, I'm only imagining what you learned and what you saw. I love it.
Yeah, it was really fun bringing a new brand to the state. Our first location on Bel Air Road, we had to hire police to manage traffic for the lines up and down Bel Air Road to get into the restaurant and through the drive-throughs. So going from the business being one of the best in the country, and at the end of the day we were just selling donuts. Um, to having to transition into being a 24/7 operation, which added a lot of complexities to making the decision to sell pretty strong business at the height of its growth,
Right.
and have that be a really good decision.
Absolutely.
It ultimately did take down a lot of other franchisees, as I think the business grew a little too quickly as a franchisor. It was, the barriers to entry the business were expensive to, get a pad site, build out a building, the equipment. So it wasn't a cheap endeavor. And, there was California franchisees that had opened 40 plus stores, and
Wow.
a lot of them went bankrupt through it all. So,
Wow.
um,
It's interesting because, no one ever sets the pace of growth. It really just happens. And you never know if it's right until you get through those moments, those big moments like you have,
yep,
like, we're doing awesome right now, but let's sell, let's get out, like
yep.
whatever that in it, gut or that expertise, like all three of you having that knowledge together, it was just great. So then what was next?
So, in the midst of the sale, I knew that I didn't really want to work for Krispy Kreme corporate, as they were buying the businesses. So, um, after spending some time in Colorado, after college, I learned of the Quiznos brand,
Mhm.
which the area developer for the franchise had opened their first location in Timonium, Maryland, and I decided, with the help of my father, to purchase that location, and I ultimately took it from a 2,000 square foot store. It was losing money when I bought it from the area developer,
Okay.
and doing like $500,000 in sales, which wasn't a bad sales threshold for that type of business.
Okay.
But I ultimately, in the next year or so, took it to a $1 million revenue business.
Wow.
Loved the franchise, loved the model. So decided to open and hopefully replicate that experience with other locations. Ultimately grew it to four locations, and then got closer to the recession,
Right.
um,
We're
the
inching up to
Great
2008
Recession.
here, right?
Yep. So that took me. That was probably 8, 9 years of my career.
Mhm.
Opening stores, operating. The first 5 or 6 were really strong years, and then unfortunately, I found that franchises aren't always the right way. While they um, can provide you with the support and that cookie cutter type model
Right.
to operate a business, your franchisor isn't always your partner. And in this case, Quiznos as a franchisor was essentially a food procurement company where they were making a lot of their monies was off the back of their franchisees that were a captive audience to them. And they were essentially a food procurement company where they were marking it up to their franchisees, in some cases 50%, which the Great Recession eventually exposed.
That's right. Tomatoes. I remember our conversation about tomatoes.
Yeah, I could go get them a lot cheaper at Restaurant Depot on my own than I could with the bulk buying power of a franchise. That's when the light bulb went off and said, something's going on here that's not quite right. So unfortunately that, ended in some favorable litigation, but a lot of time and, fear through that whole process that, I didn't really want to go through.
Yes. And that's such a different type of stress, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. No, the little guy, little franchisee, going up against the big franchisor. The only, confidence I had in going up against the big guy was that I knew that they were wrong in a lot of ways. And I learned through their franchise disclosure documents that they liked to settle a lot of cases when when litigation was brought against them. So, but it taught me, through a good year of my life, a whole new realm of business that, I don't want to be caught in down the road or in the future, at least on that side of the business or of the lawsuit.
Absolutely.
But it was a great learning experience going through that whole process, but scary at the same time.
Absolutely. And, I want to share your entire story, but I want to come back to some things that we can really help the audience with here, because you have so much depth and knowledge of those contracts and the perspective. And not only that, but the operation and the formula, seeing so many different types of things. I also want to ask you, do you still eat Krispy Kremes? Like, can you look at the Krispy Kremes the same way? I have to just interject that real quick.
Certainly. Yeah, no, I used to, I was much younger then. I could eat a dozen donuts through a shift and it not hit my waist. But and actually, after we sold them, all of those Krispy Kremes eventually closed as the franchisor and company struggled. But interestingly enough, they've since opened a bunch of Krispy Kremes in the state since. One of them is in our former Owings Mills location, so that sat vacant for years since then. But now Krispy Kreme, with a new franchisee, I guess, has reopened that location.
That's right, full circle.
And I was there, a few weeks ago and actually got some donuts. So yeah, good product.
So it sounds like you have a really keen sense, like that gut instinct, but also dig deep into the study of the documents and the operation and all of that. So which one kind of leads you, or do they both really work in tandem and you think it through?
They definitely have to work in tandem. And, some of my experiences with these franchisors has, swayed where we've gone into our current franchisor. It's made us do some due diligence that we wouldn't have otherwise done.
Yes.
We always like to reach out to existing franchisees. And that's one of the beauties of a franchise, is that there's other people doing the same thing as you, that you can pull information from, asking them what's working, what do you like about the franchise, what don't you like about the franchise, and what would you do differently, all those questions that the franchisor is not going to tell you, and they do suggest, hey, go talk to franchisees, and they'll give you their honest feedback.
That's right.
They're not restricted from telling you anything.
So, and it's very, very smart. So after the favorable litigation with Quiznos, what did that feel like afterwards? And how did you choose your next path? Like, how does that happen? Like, I remember when I sold my former company, like my professional confidence was in the tank. It took me a while to recover, right?
Sure.
You go through that period, right? Did you go through
Yeah,
that?
totally. Well, yeah, I mean, even more so because, we were in the Great Recession at that point.
Mhm.
It's right now our 10-year anniversary of our Rent-A-Center business.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
So we entered the Rent-A-Center business, which was formerly called Color Time, the
Mhm.
franchising arm of Rent-A-Center, but through some mergers and acquisitions, and we've since changed it to Rent-A-Center. But we entered the business as in a Great Recession, and 10 years later, we're now in a pandemic. So two similar
Oh
extremes.
my gosh.
Um,
10 years from now, what are we going to be saying? And where are
I
we going to be
know, I
living? That's
know,
the better question. What street are we going to be living on, right?
exactly. But so a lot of or all of my franchise activities, except maybe the Quiznos, except with some help from my dad, have
Mhm.
been kind of family oriented
Mhm.
franchises. I've always had my dad helping me out in some capacity. With this current business, I've got Scott McHale, my brother-in-law,
Mhm.
and Susan Pappas, my dad's wife, and my stepmom,
Yeah. Rock
who's,
star.
yeah, she's got an extensive background in with DuPont in the corporate world. She's a chemical engineer by trade, but I can get into more of that later. But but um, with getting into
The
the
transition.
Rent-A-Center franchise in the midst of the Great Recession,
Right. I
my
love how you call it the
brother-in-law,
Great Recession.
yeah, the my brother-in-law family business, Gaines McHale, was going
Mhm.
through a similar transition out of business through the whole recession. People were tending to sway away from buying expensive antiques where they could acquire those goods from your Pier 1 and your restoration hardware and so forth.
Mhm.
So they found their business in some trouble. He had just married my sister, so it kind of ended as a kind of a convergence of um, ideas with
Mhm.
his expertise in the retail furniture business, my expertise in operations and management, and kind of all facets of business and the franchise world. We did a lot of due diligence on different franchises in the franchise world.
Right.
It just so happened that my dad, whose career was spent in banking and
Right.
accounting before
Young.
he became entrepreneurial.
Right. He was
Um,
young, right? Ernst Young?
yeah, Ernst and Young, or Ernst and Winnie, or Ernst at the time was
Mhm.
where he started his career as a CPA, and then through banking and MBNA America.
Mm.
So a pretty decorated career as a CFO
Corporate. Yeah.
um, in many different big organizations and banks, accounting firms throughout his career. But one of his tasks in his accounting days were back in the 80s to audit a rent-to-own business. Don't recall the name of it, but the industry's been around for a while, and
Right.
they he audited it and found that it was a clean operating business. They were just doing very well. So
Mhm.
when we figured that this business might be an opportunity for us as a franchise, we found that we all kind of brought different skill sets to the table that might help get this off the ground. And
Great.
we looked at a bunch of different competitors. Aaron's Rents is a competitor. Buddies was another one, but we ultimately decided to go with Color Time. But unfortunately, they had no territory for us in the state of Maryland because there was already a franchisee in this area. So after probably a year or 6 months of exploring where to open our first store, we ended up just outside of Philly in a town called Sharon Hill. And Scott and I spent probably the first 4 months of our career commuting daily to Philly up and down 95, often staying in hotels and trying to, again, learn the business from the ground up.
Right. And at this point, you have a new son at home, and it's.
Yep. Yeah. Brand new son. So son just born. So leaving Michelle at home to continue with her career and raise the boy at that time. Up and down, and the business didn't start off all too well. We with the unraveling of our previous businesses, we took on some debt just to kind of pay us to keep ourselves whole.
Right.
So we opened up the business in Sharon Hill with some debt that we wouldn't have otherwise preferred to open a business with, a little over leveraged.
Okay.
And we started off struggling. So fortunately, we got the opportunity to acquire the stores in Elkton and Aberdeen, Maryland, from a franchisee who was exiting the business, which gave us the ability to get back into more of our territory, closer to home, and gave us some more economies of scale to absorb some of the overhead of Scott and myself and the other partners. So that was really an opportunity that got us off the ground and got us to scale a bit.
Did that opportunity present itself, or were you seeking it out? Like, did you know that you had to distribute the overhead in order for it to make sense? Was that?
We knew we had to grow. And at that time, the franchisor was also looking to grow via their franchisees. So he
was driving the growth as well.
Yeah, the Rent-A-Center corporate is, national franchise, publicly traded company, 2,000 plus stores across the country, Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico. But they wanted to grow in their franchise, and they had a whole, staff attributed to their franchisees. So they wanted to grow the franchisee footprint. As some of our competitors have done. Aaron's is probably 50-50 franchisee and corporate stores. So we liked that Rent-A-Center has their skin in the game in that they're operating, so we can use them as a benchmark as to how well we perform. But as a Color Time and now Rent-A-Center franchisee, we knew we had to grow to make money, and to provide, not just for my family, but our whole, three groups of families.
Absolutely. So. And to make for a nice dinner conversation during Thanksgiving, right?
Exactly.
I love, you've told me this in the past, like this, the interviewing of the different franchises and, looking at Aaron's and looking at a Rent-A-Center and doing the comparison. And it's almost like that hindsight of saying, oh my goodness, like, I'm so glad we went this route. Like, it really worked out. Your due diligence must be insane. Obviously you have the talent between Scott and yourself and your dad and Susan, but for people out there that are saying, I want to get into a business, and a franchise seems like a great magic wand. It probably feels like a magic wand in the beginning because they're trying to sell, right? Their their portion. That's their business strategy. That's their growth strategy. So like, what's the best advice you can give other than interviewing and that type of thing? What type of due diligence that is non-traditional do you kind of do that you would advise? That's a hard question, I know, but
It's a good question. It's anyone can, really start a franchise. If you've got, a successful business that you can replicate, you can, contact an attorney to draw up some franchise documents, get an
Right.
FDD going, and start collecting a franchise fee and a royalty thereafter. So I mean, it really is, the due diligence is really the key, and as to who you're getting essentially in a partnership with,
Right.
because they essentially are your partner. They help dictate, where the brand is going to evolve to,
Right.
and how it's going to, in this pandemic, how it's going to help us navigate.
Right.
So you're looking to them as, I'm paying you a royalty not only for the use of your name, but how are you going to help me, maximize my
Yes.
bottom line?
The leadership, the
Yeah,
number,
through. I
the
mean, it's
vision.
yeah. So it's it's really an important decision, and hindsight, we did dodge some bullets in not going with some other franchises. And as much as I hate stroking that royalty check at the every end of every month, there is some value to having at least a franchise system in place, and I would say more so in having a franchise community, to bounce off of other operators that are doing the same thing as you. And our business is unique. It's the rent to own industry, and there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And
So
from every
let's talk about that a little bit. So go ahead, just keep on going with that, because I this is just so fascinating. So skinning the
yeah
cat and what it
so
looks like today and all of that.
our business serves an incredibly resilient, credit constrained consumer base. We get them and help them with the appliances, electronics, furniture, for their homes that they otherwise couldn't acquire.
Video games.
Yeah, video games, just everything. I mean, they're the wants and need, and more importantly, their needs for what they need to survive.
Right.
And it involves the sales, the collections, the marketing. We do all of our service for the products that are in our customers' homes.
The placement.
Replacement of product, refurbishment of product. We also deliver all of our products. So in a 5 person staff store, we're doing all of these different tasks.
Wow.
And it's a lot to ask of our people to serve these customers. And it's really a relationship, as much of it is a financial transaction with our customer base. We're really serving and building a relationship with our customer that you don't see in a normal retail transaction. So it's we're learning why they can't pay us in any given week because a relative died, or their car broke down, or unexpected, they lost their job, which through this pandemic a lot of our customer base has.
Right.
Fortunately, some stimulus has kicked in that has really helped those that have lost their job. The federal stimulus at $600 a week was like working another job for a lot of our customer base. But it's But back to the operations of the business, which, Scott and I have gotten very intimate with. There's a lot of ways to do it, and the franchise community and other franchisees have really helped us learn and understand how to do it, and at least given us ideas of that we could maybe pull from and figure out how to do better in some regards. So it's a very interesting business.
So 10 years, you
10
started
years.
off with one store, and now where are you?
So now we have 12 locations. We've got 2 in Aberdeen, Maryland, 1 in Northeast Maryland, 2 in Elkton, Maryland, 1 in Bear, Delaware, Smyrna, Delaware, Newark, Delaware, Newcastle, Delaware, 2 in Wilmington, and 1 in Boothwyn, Pennsylvania. So,
I don't know if I've ever heard of any of those places.
Yeah, they're cool little parts of the Northeast part of Maryland, up the 95 corridor and down some of the north part of Delaware,
right.
northern part of Delaware. So nice little pockets of the Northeast region.
So do you feel like challenged and fulfilled, and like is this doing it for you? Are you just like every day like, oh my gosh, like this is cool, let's figure this out, how can we keep on growing?
Yeah, well, again, one of the advantages of being in a franchise, it's given us the opportunity to grow to this amount of stores.
Right.
In some of these markets, there was already corporate Rent-A-Center stores, and we may have been operating as a Color Time franchisee, and they actually came to us in, I think, 2013 or 14, and pitched to us changing our name from Color Time to Rent-A-Center, and following on their marketing coattails, having the same name, fared better for the brand and so forth. So we ultimately did change our name from Color Time to Rent-A-Center, but in that case, there was sometimes already a Rent-A-Center corporate store operating in that market.
Okay.
And even in some cases, an Aaron's competitor in that same market as well. So through the years, or at that time in particular, we were offered to change our name, but we said we didn't really want to compete with a Rent-A-Center corporate store. So how can you help us here? And they offered to sell us what ended up being, I think, 8 stores that we bought, which increased our footprint pretty quickly. But in some cases, like in Aberdeen and Elkton, we then had 3 stores. So we figured out that we needed to consolidate to reduce some overhead. We didn't need all of those stores operating literally in a 1-mile radius of one another. So in each of the Aberdeen and Elkton markets, we closed the store, merged all of the counts to the other 2 stores, and operated out of our two stores, and as it remains today. And we also had competitors as Aaron in those 2 markets, which we started to put a little bit of a hurting on. So they eventually came to us and asked for us to buy them out, which we did, I think in 2018 or 2017. We bought out both of the competitors in those 2 markets.
Wow.
So that was a nice, and Rent-A-Center and Aaron's on the corporate side always, are talking with one another. So they were able to help broker that deal that, as Harry and Scott's rent-own, we wouldn't have otherwise had that opportunity to buy, a major competitor in the marketplace. So
Absolutely.
The franchise did provide us with that opportunity to acquire competition.
That's great. Right. A lot of leverage there, a lot of resources, a lot of tools, and it makes you bigger than just the Thanksgiving Day table, right?
Yep. And then and we ultimately, merged some of those locations and got back down to 6 locations. And then in June of last year, Rent-A-Center they were getting prepared to sell their company to another competitor, as their business had gone away. They weren't expecting, but did a bit of a turnaround in some regards off of the ideas of their suitors' proposals, and then ultimately backed out of that acquisition. And instead of being, a seller of a lot of their corporate locations, they went back to, keeping a lot of theirs. But there were some markets, primarily in Delaware, that they and other parts of the country that they were looking still to dispose of, which weren't always the better performing markets. But we saw that as an opportunity to, again, grow our footprint. And we decided to buy six more stores, Rent-A-Center stores, from them, and took our footprint to the 12 we're at today, which has done wonders for us. But the Rent-A-Center stores are definitely operated a little bit differently than we operated our businesses, because they're our own businesses. We're able to adapt to better to our customers' needs. We don't have to manage it as a 2,000 unit business. We can, we're managing as a 12 store business now, and we can, if our customers or our employees don't like the way we're doing things, we can adapt to, make it better for everybody. Right. So that's been an advantage of it being our business within a franchise.
Absolutely. But that's monumental growth to double from 6 to 12 in a short period of time. So how did you, if you're comfortable talking about leveraging financing tools, go through that kind of growth, and then B, how did you handle it with, in your C-suite, quote unquote, between your leadership with a small leadership team, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a
lot.
It is. Well, yeah, doubling our store count, and also, we went from, a small business under 50 employees to now close to 70 employees. So you doubled, our coworker base, which, everything doubled. And, the leases to manage, and the fleet vehicles to manage, and the expenses to manage, and coworkers to manage. So it doubled everything. But
your leadership didn't double. It's still you guys.
True. Yes.
Thanksgiving Day table.
Yeah. But, I think I've mentioned this to you before. We all kind of do a lot of different things, and we had to really sit back and decide who was best suited for what tasks. So there weren't too many cooks in the kitchen. And that's when Scott and I were kind of running the 6 stores. That's kind of how it was. And Scott's a different operator than myself. So one manager might call him for one thing, call me for the other. But we were both so we've divided and conquered our tasks as of more recently.
The swim lanes, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I've morphed into, more of the back office, some of the things I just mentioned, the leases, the fleet, the detail, expense management type operations of the business. And he's taken on more of the sales and marketing. And Susan has helped from initially remotely, at least at the beginning of this pandemic, from down in Florida, before we noticed that things were getting out of hand with the pandemic. But yes, to answer.
Go ahead. I think that's the cool thing about growth is that you really never know your capacity until you really challenge your capacity and you're there.
Yeah.
And you just, kind of unscramble your process and make it better. And you can do so much more, when you have it in front of you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I do like my control, but I've had to learn to let go of some things, and I've found now that Hilly, our accountant in house, has really handled some things better than I have.
Right.
Once I've shown her and delegated and followed up, that hey, wow, she can do this better than me, so might as well
Hmm.
um, learn to delegate.
That's right.
Um,
It's an
but
art. It really is.
it
It's
is,
amazing
yeah,
when you learn it.
delegate and follow up, inspect what you expect, and so on. But back to the financing thing, yes, our business is a unique business. It's traditionally been boutique banks that really understand the business, that have been able to finance acquisitions like this. And traditional banks have not really understood the business, in that we have inventory that goes out on rent, often comes back, and that's their collateral should the business go south, is used inventory, which at the
Right.
end of the day doesn't have a whole lot of value, other than some of the vehicles and stuff like that. But again, used vehicles. So getting them to understand that and then there's a depreciation
Right.
component to the business with all of the inventory. In our case, a straight line depreciation over 21 months. How does that factor into the business, where it can throw off some tax liabilities, losses, but it's cash flowing very heavily.
Right. Cash flow.
So
I mean, the cash flow, banks love, right?
yeah, but they don't always get into the numbers, as to underwrite that business in that
Right.
regard. So
Right.
um, fortunately, a fellow that my dad used to work with, and who did a deal with them for their Burger Kings in M&T
Okay.
Bank back
Okay.
in the day, had been laid off. So we brought him on board for a little while in early 2019, just to help us explore other opportunities
Right.
that may be out there, because we're always looking to diversify our businesses. And
Absolutely. Well,
um,
and, I see that in all different types of businesses, is that you have to know what bank to go to, or what, private investor to go to, that really gets your business and can understand your business. And the traditional banks aren't necessarily the go-to for businesses like this. And
yeah,
and because the collateral is just different and the cash flow is different, and they have to
yeah.
understand that. It's so true.
And up until this point, we wouldn't have had an in with these banks. And fortunately, him working with us, he got to understand our business, and he in after he finished with us, he got a job with BB&T,
Okay.
and
Which is now somebody else, right?
which just merged with SunTrust and is
Right.
now Truist.
Okay. Yep.
But and we were working with the other bank that did take the time to get to know the business, which was unique, that we were able to get financed through them. But this guy really helped the underwriters learn our business,
Yeah.
and they've now gotten a big bank in M&T, or in BB&T, now Truist, knowledge of our industry, and we secured some nice financing
Good.
through them, which at
Good.
historical lows, and their costs of funds are so much better than a lot of these smaller banks.
Right. Right.
So we're at 2% interest rates
Yes.
on a lot of our financing. So it's
Yes, which
amazing.
I mean, your business is a lot like my business. When you are watching that, how much that money is costing you by the day, by the second, that interest rate means everything.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, all of the information is just priceless, especially a lot of the stuff that you just said about delegating and
Yeah.
finally hiring that, internal controller, accountant, bookkeeper, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
to, speaking the bank language and having someone on your team speak the bank language. And I see so many business owners who, I grew up in banking. So it's a language. I understand it. I get it. And a lot of people have that challenge. So those resources and finding those resources are just really great advice from your end.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a memory of mine when we were in San Francisco with Michelle and Harry and Liz and Brian. You're the fun friend on vacation. You're like, hey, let's go check out this franchise. I'm sniffing out this
Counterburger.
franchise. And you know me, business nerd. I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? Let's go. And we sneak in and study it. Right.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That's
so fun.
I know. So
A burger joint, right?
you gotta get familiar with, the product or service that you're looking to do business with.
Yes, it's like every operation I go in, I just study how the people walk in, how they pay, where they go, what they're buying. It's just, and I know you think the same way as I do. What's wrong with us?
Yeah, interview the customers if you can, and get feedback from everybody.
I know. You also gave me a lot of flashbacks from the days when, the 2008 days. Which I know a lot of our audience on here has survived and evolved through that chapter. But when we were talking to suitors, we were a privately held real estate firm, and we were talking to all of the different types of franchise out there and trying to see which one would be the best fit and what was the right answer and where to go and how to survive and have somebody help you out when you were in, dire straits. So really great knowledge.
That was a big transaction for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So what's next?
Yeah, I've been just, continuing with this for now. We're getting through these challenging times. We've, like our accountant in place, we've now got, an operator who's running all 12 of our stores. He's been in the industry for 20 some years, formerly with Rent-A-Center Corporate. So he's come over to our franchise side, and he's really embraced our people. He's embraced our customers, and he's just changing our business for the better in so many ways. He's doing things for us that, Scott and I, could never have done. And it's, again, letting go of some of the reins and
Right.
Empowering your people to take on those challenges for you, and listening to your coworkers and your people in the field, and changing and trying to adapt to the ever changing business climates, and it's ever changing as we speak.
Totally. And that's a whole new layer of growth for you. And I honestly couldn't be more proud of you. And I love how you told your story today of starting with the 7 p.m. to the 7 a.m. shifts, which I remember vividly. Everybody's like, well, Harry's going to make donuts, And,
Yep.
And now to be making the big decisions and having 12 stores, and you just have to be so proud. I know your family is so proud of you. And I'm so proud of you. And I just love it. I just love it. And it's awesome. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
What can we do for you? Any ask or anything? We'll end on that note. Anything, where to find you? I don't know.
No, we're just.
We need a couch. Come to you. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we're just plugging away.
Good.
Yeah, no, always looking for different business opportunities, and
good.
So trying to be, remain an entrepreneur and, grow the businesses.
That's right. Grow the empire. I love it. I love it. Harry, you're the best. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Annette.
Bye.
Take care.
Wow, what an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@ievolveconsulting.com. Hit subscribe, and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve. So please let me know what you need, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care until next time.